Good evening, everybody. This is Tim Dole with Distilled Living with Crazy Cabin Fever Cocktails produced by Fascination Design, episode 57. I was going to go with 53. So,
Fairly
whatever
certain
that
said
says.
57.
But I'm being told it's 57, so that's probably correct. I'm probably wrong. So, vermouths. We've been getting into some vermouths lately. Um, and I just died.
Did it sign you out?
I have no idea what just happened. It went
That's.
off of the screen that it was on. Nope. Are we
No,
still
we're still
live?
live. We're still live.
Okay. So we should totally say we said live. The spaces took over and moved me, and it anyway, tech fail. This is why we play with tech on this show and not in the virtual bourbon tastings people pay us for. So because we don't have that happen in those. All right, and vermouths. So we got some vermouths as gifts. We have some vermouths as gifts over the holidays, and vermouths are fun. Vermouths are fortified wines, which means they're wines to which distilled wine has been added, typically along with herbs and spices and occasionally some sort of sweetening agent. There's two general styles, sweet or Italian and dry or French. The names, the country identifiers are meaningless nowadays. It was just kind of a historic inertia, but it's persistent to this day. You get vermouths all over the world. They can be sweet, they can be dry, they can be in the middle. It's a whole lot of different categories, but they're all basically the idea of fortified wine infused. Hillary has something. Dolan. So Dolan Dry. This is kind of our go-to house. I'm trying to get it so the lighting actually doesn't like catch the label too much. So go-to house. Dolan Dry. This is a really common, really popular one. But Hillary picked up this Trincherry. I angle it down a little bit, I get better. I don't get so much glare. Trincherry dry vermouth, and the Dolan Dry is actually fairly neutral. It's a supporting element in a lot of other cocktails, but it's never the dominant element. And the Trincherry is totally different, like completely different flavor profiles. This is a lot of citrus, a lot of spice. This is like big and intense. This is a dominant element. So when Hillary was making up these cocktails, because she makes up all the cocktails, I think I've made up one cocktail in the last 2 months. Um, she wanted to play off that. And so I'm going to make two cocktails with the dry vermouth, and then she's going to make a cocktail with sweet vermouth. Talk about sweet vermouth a little bit over there. So the first one is this is Hillary's G&T Martini, which literally just combines G&T, gin and tonic, and a martini. And it's actually quite good. And she's got this really interesting one-on-one recipe. So we're starting out with the vermouth simply because it's in front of me. This is going to be 1.5 ounces. And then I'm gonna go with 1.5 ounces of Hayman's Old Tom gin. This is a really important gin to use because this has a lot of big botanical, but also some sweetness on it that is gonna help bridge some of the different disparate flavor profiles in this. And then we're gonna go ahead and add 1.5 ounces of Fever Tree Tonic at the beginning. I know this is gonna kill some of the bubbles, but that's okay because we want it to integrate more than we want the bubbles. This is also going to bring a little bit of sweetness, so the whole thing is going to be sweeter than a martini, but have some really interesting distinctive flavor profiles as a result. Oh, we have not checked to see how this sounds with any light.
For everybody listening, there's a mic up above Tim right now, so it's on the table. So every time you hit the table, you're less likely to hear him.
Right.
But we haven't checked to see in the videos how the ice stirring sounds. It
Right.
kind of cuts out because we're using Zoom, and Zoom tries to squash that kind of sound, or if you can actually still hear me. So this is a little bit of a test of that too. Most of the events that we've been doing with this mic have been bourbon tastings instead of cocktails.
That's true.
So
Yeah, we're mostly done cocktails in the other studios. So remember, Vermouth does not play well with others. It is a long stir to get this done. Yes, I'm breaking a lot of those bubbles in the tonic. It was not there for the texture. It was there for the flavor.
I'm
We
gonna
get a little bit of effervescence, but not too much.
I want to mention something about the tonic. One of the reasons I added tonic to this particular recipe was because I wanted some bitters without adding, or a kind of a bitter flavor without adding bitters to it. So the tonic with the quinine, we're using Fever Tree tonic, which actually has quinine in it,
Mhm.
and it gives that kind of like a little bit of the bitterness that you would normally get out of bitters in some of your standard cocktails. So we don't have bitters in this; we have tonic water.
Yeah, these are real tonics. Don't use tap Thanks. And then this is going to get a lemon just to elevate the entire thing. So we're going to a little twist. Same lemon we used as a twist for it last night. So we do nice, beautiful twist over the top. Spin it around. Stunning. Ooh, it's really delicious. So that long stir and the fact that we introduced the tonic gives this a sweeter character. If you're thinking this is going to be dry, it's not going to be dry. It's going to be sweet, but it's really, really delicious and very bright. This is not splitting the difference between a G&T and a martini. This is an entirely different drink. This would appeal to vodka drinkers who are starting to get into gin because everything plays so nice together. If somebody has to drink a lemon drop because it's sweet and citrusy, this actually would be a good step up from that because it has so much more depth of character, but it's very, very approachable as a cocktail.
And it's not sickly sweet. It's very, very. It's going to appeal to somebody who kind of goes either direction, to a dry drink or a sweet drink.
Yep.
You're gonna make the other dry one?
I'm gonna make the other one dry one. So that's okay.
Yep.
Okay. So we're gonna do another dry one. We're gonna use the same vermouth as our base. Yeah, I need. I have to look at the recipes because I have no idea what's going on with these recipes. Okay. So again with here, so she's doing these balances 1-1-1s.
That's not the case there. It's
like this is a 1-1-1 a half. Again, we're going to introduce a very slight sweet element with this Drolade white cocoa, creme de cocoa liqueur. So this is going to bring our sugar. And other than that, this is going to be a fairly dry cocktail because everything else is just liqueur basically, or just liquor basically. So this is going to be a half ounce of that. Now we're going to do gin and bourbon and vermouth. So this is not reflective of any cocktail ever.
But it tastes really good.
This tastes really good. No, that's actually not true. There were a bunch of cocktails in the early days that would split the difference between gins, especially Old Tom's, although this is a Plymouth that we're using, and bourbons or other whiskeys. And so they were kind of interchangeable, and you could almost put them together in a cocktail, although I didn't see a whole lot of evidence of that. But I haven't looked closely for those kinds of mixed cocktails in history. I just know that they would take the same cocktail and substitute out your base spirit pretty readily very often. And then finally, I'm introducing our vermouth. Yes, I'm building this in a totally random order, not the way that I would build this if I was in a bar setting, but I'm going to be the one drinking it, so don't really care.
The Kentucky Martinez, which you can find on the Still Living website, uses both gin and bourbon. I'm not sure if everybody can hear me because Tim started stirring.
Sorry, go ahead.
The Kentucky Martinez on the Still Living website uses both gin and bourbon, right?
Yeah. Kentucky Martinez is awesome, and it's a great cocktail. It's a Martinez with half gin and half bourbon as your base spirit, and it is wonderful. Again, this does not play well with others, so we got nothing to do. It's really the vermouth that's the problem. If you tried to do the same thing without the vermouth, it would integrate very quickly. All your flavors would meld, and you get a harmony there. The problem is those aren't harmonious without the vermouth. It would be a discordant set of flavors, but they would be well integrated. In order to get harmonious flavors themselves in a harmony, like you got to do this. There's nothing else to do. This is why a lot of the really, really impressive bartenders can do like stir like 4 drinks at a time because it's so slow to do some of these stirred drinks. Fill glass. And this is it. This does not actually get a garnish or anything, but it does have a little bit more color compared to the last one. The last one was clear. It looked like water, so it could have a different viscosity. This actually, you can see a very slight tint to it because it's picking up color from the bourbon there, and so you can see that.
This one has a little bit less citrusy quality to it because of that white cocoa, like cacao liqueur.
This really is like a soft gin, a soft sweet gin. The gin is the big note. Everything else supports underneath it and brings it out. It actually doesn't taste strongly of the bourbon at all. The bourbon kind of just brings a little more sweetness and plays well with the sweetness of the white cocoa. But you don't taste the white cocoa much either, except as a little bit of sweetness. It's really just like an extremely pleasant way of drinking gin neat and chilled. It's really quite good. It's weird how all these flavors, any one of these things individually, would not create what you would expect this to be. When they integrate these things together, very often the output is totally different. It was explained to me one time is like 1 plus 1 might equal 3, it might equal -1. And you never know until you try. And you got to try it with the exact right ingredients to get one of these really sophisticated cocktails like we're doing here.
That's why I brought the Dolan in, is I wanted to talk about it just a little bit because
Mm.
that's typically for most bars, they're going to stick with that.
Dolan or Noily Pratt.
Yeah, the better bars are going to stick typically with Dolan unless they've gone one level up into this kind of realm where you have to be a little bit more careful with what you combine it with. It's just, this one has just enough of a citrusy note. It's just really not going to work in a lot of the recipes that call for the Dolan or the Noily Pratt for that matter. If you would literally just took these and put these in like a little coupe or a little aperitif glass and sipped on them, they taste totally different. Same thing about the sweet ones, which we're going to talk about in just a second.
It's fun to do, but remember, if you get into vermouths stored in the refrigerator.
Yes.
So you gotta make space for them. All right. Now they're just gonna do something sweet.
It's not really sweet.
Something with sweet vermouth. How about that?
I'm gonna make Tim talk because I actually don't make a lot of drinks in front of the camera, so I'm gonna probably mess up if I try to talk and do this at the same time. Would you mind taking
it's your? To talk and drink at the same time.
Well, you can hold on. Thank you.
So that's a really good drink that I'm drinking.
Do you want to talk about this one?
So Carpana Antica Formula. This is your default sweet vermouth for your higher end cocktail bars, mixology bars. This is the one that you'll see recommended in all the books. Death and Co's book, they're just like start here. This is way step up above a Northern Pratt or Martini and Rossi. Way better, much more sophisticated, much more complex flavor profile. So this, if you're getting into sweet vermouths, start here. And then experiment out because they get to very different flavor profiles. These don't taste anything like this. These are really dramatically different flavors.
So these two, the one that Tim was working with just a minute ago and this one, are both from the same winery. One's the dry, one's the sweet. I've never heard of this brand before until someone brought it in Lexington and I picked it up. Afton got us this one, and it's totally different from the Antica formula. The Antica formula has got complex flavors while being sweet, but it still has a lot of sweetness to it. I would think that this one tastes a little bit closer to a port.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because it's got that extra sweetness to it. This one has a lot less sweetness to it, as does this one. This one has kind of a little bit of a anise flavor to it. This one really brings out some of the chocolatey kind of flavors when you start getting it into cocktails. But on its own, it doesn't. I don't know that it really has that chocolatey flavor. Do you?
Not really. No, it's surprising when you start working.
Do you just step in and like talk to people too?
Anyway. So when you start working with vermouths, because like I mentioned, they don't play well with others, and because they're such distinct flavor profiles, when you start mixing with them, you don't know what you're going to have until you're done. They're really there's so much complexity that when you drink it neat, you drink it chilled, or you drink it in a cocktail, it's a little bit more unpredictable what flavors you're going to get out of it based upon what else you're mixing it with. It's really fun to play with, though.
These two, I would actually drink as an aperitif kind of drink. This one in particular is really good on its own, just like in a small glass, as is this one. These are very complex. I don't know what to call them other than aperitif. I mean, they're vermouths, yes. But usually people don't spend a lot of time just drinking vermouth. I also don't know that I would drink this one by itself. It's really a lot better in cocktails. But this is where I'm going with this one is that I'm doing some vermouth forward cocktails. Usually you do 2-1-2 or 2-1-1. In this instance, I'm doing kind of equal parts with the vermouth because these vermouths are so much better and different than your standard vermouths. So going on to the sweet cocktail here, I've got the Bitter Cube Bitters Cherry Bark Vanilla, which is a really interesting bitter because even though it doesn't say it on the label here, it tastes a lot like fennel. And honestly, when I started looking at the ingredients, it says alcohol, water, spices, vanilla bean, and sugar. But it has a distinctive fennel note, which is great with this. So I'm going to do 2 dashes of this. I am going to do 1.5 ounces of Elijah Craig. Which vermouth should I use? Because I've done this with both of these.
These flavor profiles memorized.
Okay.
It has so much red cherry, like heavy red fruit and apple. I did this one. It's much more classically sweet vermouth. It's my thinking and my palate memory, but it's super rich. Has a lot of chocolate character.
These drinks are really good paired with chocolate, by the way. With the sweet vermouth. The dry vermouth, especially the citrusy dry vermouth, is going to be, anything where you would normally want to drink something that's kind of a little more lemony. So. Tim says that back when he started to learn to stir drinks, that he came home and practiced this. I have zero memory of that. He said he used to practice it while watching TV. I don't know what I was doing, but I have no memory of him coming home and practicing stirring.
His ideal stir should be silent. So you can tell that the ice is moving as a single block.
Not like this.
Right. It's moving as a single unit and spinning as a single unit and not hitting the sides. If it's hitting the sides or it's making noise, you're starting to break off the ice chips, which is diluting it and also introducing air, which is changing the texture. So really getting into stirring technique, it's like anything else, it's a skill.
Chill glass. We have a bowl off to the side here.
Yeah, we're not just dumping it on the floor. There's actually a bowl over there.
I wouldn't want to clean up with that.
We don't have a sink here, unfortunately, yet.
Technically, if you step 3 feet to the left.
There's a sink over there, not in the bowl. Yeah, look at that color. You see how much richer you get with both the bourbon and the vermouth, and obviously the bitters even bringing some color as well.
Yeah. So usually you don't have cocktails that have quite so much vermouth in them, but I'm really liking these vermouths. So I wanted to do something that was a little bit more vermouth forward. So historically, though, look at the old recipes. Some of the old recipes for Manhattans and Manhattan variations were more vermouth than they were rye whiskey or bourbon, and it's in the modern era that we swapped it over. So this is kind of a throwback way of drinking vermouth forward cocktails and vermouth heavy cocktails, which I think is cool. So we have 3 different vermouth centric drinks here. Well, that's not the best display of them. It really isn't. Oh well, you got to see them earlier. I'll take one back. It looks better in the air. So better contrast. Do we have anything else to talk about vermouth? We do want to do a little bit more research on it. We didn't manage to by tonight. So it's been busy. Yeah. Weirdly. So that's all we have to say. Cheers. Cheers. Are you going to turn it off instead of me today? I'll try.